Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. With the help and blessing of God, we are privileged this evening to begin the third chapter of the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Aleph. And that's the Mishnah in all printings. Mishnah Aleph is always the same. So we're studying this evening the third chapter, the beginning of the third chapter. Our chapter of study begins with the great teaching of Akavya ben Mahallalel. It is evident to anyone studying the information known to us from other sources about Akavya ben Mahallalel that he was an outstanding idealist who had very strong convictions and was able to stand up against many, many rabbis who were telling him that he's wrong. He's wrong in his teachings. He's wrong in his approach. I would like to cite a fascinating, maybe unparalleled Mishnah elsewhere in Shas, which perhaps will help us understand more about the great teacher of the first Mishnah in chapter 3. Maybe it will assist us in understanding the greatness and uniqueness of the Tana Akavya ben Mahallalel. If one studies Masechet Eiduyot, Pirkei Mishnah Vav, Tractate Eiduyot, chapter 5, Mishnah 6, we read there that Akavya ben Mahallalel testified regarding four important matters, four important insights into halachic discussions and topics. Akavya ben Mahallalel, it says in Eiduyot, He'id arba'a devarim. He testified regarding four different areas of Jewish law, and each of those four ran contrary to the traditions and understandings of the majority of rabbis. Akavya ben Mahallalel taught four teachings. Not only did he teach these teachings, he was testifying that these are the teachings that he received in his tradition. And the majority of rabbis were teaching the opposite. Now, what's he supposed to do, right? Many people would just say that the proper thing to do is to capitulate and teach it according with the majority. But Akavya ben Mahallalel was determined that his tradition is true. And according to one of the opinions recorded in Masechet Eiduyot, each rabbi testified in areas which they either witnessed or received in a clear tradition. That's what Eiduyot means. Eidut. He'id. So they were saying testimony, this is not right. Our tradition doesn't teach the tradition of Akavya ben Mahallalel. Akavya ben Mahallalel insisted, He'id arba'a devarim. I'm telling you, these are the four teachings that I received. Amru lo. They said, change your mind, change your position. You can't stand up against the majority of rabbis. Chazar b'cha. We want you to change your position. We want you to alter your statements. And if you do, we will appoint you to be the head of the Jewish court. Chazar b'cha ba'arba'a devarim shahita omer, and v'na'ascha av beit din b'Yisrael. According to many opinions, the period where they had like the Nasi was The Nasi was the number one person in charge of the entire community. Av Beit Din. Av Beit Din. Just retract these 4 teachings. Take back these 4 testimonies, these 4 rulings, retreat from them, and we will appoint you to be the Av Beit Din, the chief justice of the entire Jewish court system. You will be the person who will be the highest ranking religious authority in the Beit Din. Av Beit Din. There was at the time the title of Nasi, if you remember. We spoke about this once in an earlier chapter. We spoke in chapter 1 of Pirkei Avot, the Nasi and the Av Beit Din. Cavia, they were saying to him, forget about these teachings, withdraw them from the record, and we will all agree to appoint you to the most distinguished of positions. Says Cavia ben Mahalalel, as is recorded in Masechet Eduyot, Amar Lahen, Mutavli lihikarei shoteh kol yamai. I don't care if everyone considers everything I'm saying to be foolish. I don't care if my entire life people view my teachings as incorrect. V'lo le'asot rasha. V'lo le'asot sha'a achat rasha lifnei hamakom. I'd rather be let all the people condemn me, let all the people look down upon me, let all the people denigrate me. It doesn't matter to me, because I'm interested in understanding what God thinks of me. When we get to the Mishnah, you'll see that he's very much into God consciousness, and that's his teaching. Mutavli, I prefer that none of you agree with me, that you think I'm a shoteh. The lo le'asot sha'achat rasha lifnei hamakom. I'm not interested in titles. That's beautiful, right? I'm not interested. You can't buy me. Or you can offer me the Av Beit Din. What Av Beit Din? I'm going to sell my soul for the Av Beit Din. I am interested in truth. I am interested in presenting the traditions as I receive them. I am interested in doing the will of God, not in being appointed Av Beit Din. I prefer being called a fool my entire life, rather than teach that which I believe to be inaccurate. I don't want to be teaching or stating or ruling teachings which I consider to be wrong. V'lo le'asot sha'a achat rasha, even for a small period, I don't want to say that which is improper in the eyes of God. As we will see in our Mishnah, here in Pirkei Avot, Cavia ben Mahalalel was constantly aware of the fact that each of us is accountable before God. That's the Mishnah. Istakel b'shlosha devarim. Consider these 3 matters. As one of them is speaking about God. God, you're going to have to stand before God and give an accounting of your life. And no pressure, no title convinces Cavia ben Mahalalel to alter his conviction or his position. I have the tradition. I have these traditions, claimed Cavia. I heard these teachings from my teachers, from my rabbis, and it is wrong for me not to share them. That would be the equivalent of becoming a rasha lifnei hamakom. Mutavli likarei shoteh kol yamai. I don't care what you think. I prefer being called and labeled a fool, but I don't want to say that which is improper in the eyes of God. And also, even if I would consider it, could you imagine? Imagine what kind of desecration of God's name would come forth from this story. And they'll say, oh, Cavia ben Mahalalel. You know why he's the Av Beit Din? You can imagine like the headlines of the newspapers. The rabbinical courts headed by a man who was bribed into the position. Shelo Yehu Omerim B'Shvil Surara Chazarbo. Akavya ben Mahalalel, they tempted him. They tempted him with this great temptation of honor, and they bought into his inner psyche, and he gave up on his positions. Let no one ever be able to say that I changed my mind in order to be appointed to the Av Beitin, to the head of the religious court system. The question is, what about the consideration? I mean, if a person has a position which is different than the position of the majority, we do have a ruling. That's not unheard of. We have a ruling that you follow the majority, right? It's a Torah teaching. Acharei Rabim lahatot. Acharei Rabim lahatot. We follow the majority. So didn't Akavya ben Mahalalel recognize the fact that his position is not reflecting the majority? Rabbi Yisrael Lipschitz, in his commentary Tiferet Yisrael, one of the classical commentaries on the Mishnah, in his commentary to Masechet Eduyot, explains that part of the dispute was that Akavya ben Mahalalel was not just repeating these teachings in the tradition that he received, but rather, as I quote from Tiferet Yisrael, Alameid, I will not, Alameid Hadin behefech mima shekibalti merabotai shani yadati shehem hayu harov. I'm not quoting minority opinions. We understand the difference between a majority opinion and a minority opinion. I'm quoting the majority opinion. That which I received, that's part of the dispute. In other words, you understand, it's not like Akavya ben Mahalalel versus all the Chachamim. Ani kibalti merabotai shani yadati shehem hayu harov. What I'm teaching in these four teachings is the majority opinion. I'm not just quoting individual minority opinions. For anyone interested in further insights into the personality and positions of Akavya ben Mahalalel, I recommend a careful study of Mishnah Vav and Mishnah Zayin in the Perek there in Masechet Eduyot. Some of Akavya's statements seemed so troubling and so problematic to the rabbis. There's a difference of opinion there, but according to at least one tradition recorded in Tractate Eduyot, Akavya, the great teacher of our Mishnah, was placed under a nidui, excommunication ban. He was minudeh because he spoke in such a defiant way. And he died. He left this world under the religious ostracization of the nidui, to the extent that, according to one tradition, Visikilu Beit Din et Arono, even after he was dead, in the casket of Akavya ben Mahalalel, there was some type of symbolic stoning ceremony. They took stone and they threw it at the Aron. Although, according to at least one opinion, Akavya's death and burial were connected to a great degradation of this great person, I find it very ironic and perhaps very telling that here in Israel, and I think in other places in the world as well, I'm sorry I didn't check it completely for the preparation for tonight's class, I just know about the Israeli custom. At almost every single funeral that I've participated in, it is the Mishnah of Akavya ben Mahalalel, which is recited at the end of the ceremony. Akavya ben Mahalalel Omer, all the cities here in Israel, Is this an international custom? I can't tell you, but here, I find it fascinating. There's only one Mishnah. You know how many Mishnayot there are in Shas? Only one Mishnah. Now, obviously, the reason seems to be because it says, where are you going to? As we'll learn. I don't know if we'll learn it tonight. Maybe we should continue the Mishnah next week. But he says, consider three matters, and one of the matters is, where are you headed to? Where are you headed to? You're headed to the grave. He says it in a much more sophisticated way than I'm saying it, right? Limako mafare. Oh, so maybe since we're in a funeral, so they quote the Mishnah about funerals, about a person heading to the grave. But over and over again, at countless numbers of funerals, the teachings of Akavya ben Mahalalel from chapter 3, Mishnah 1, are recited, and in some places, they're even chanted. They have like a chazan or a rabbi singing or chanting. Chapter 3, Mishnah 1. Since his message is so directly connected to awareness of death and the mortality of an individual. Although Akavya ben Mahalalel is quoted in only select places, not that many places in the entire Mishnah, nevertheless, his teachings and legacies remain forever. The striking contrast between this is the person who passed away, with such a problematic way. How many rabbis did they ever say they threw stones at his grave in a form of symbolic skila? And he's the one, and he umeit b'niduyah, and he is the one who's being brought back to life almost at every funeral. Siftotav dovavot bekever. When you quote a teaching, the rabbis teach, when you quote a teaching from someone who's no longer in this world, it's almost as if you're reviving them, almost as if their lips are moving in the grave. Yehi zichro baruch. We do hope that we can incorporate and internalize the great teachings of Akavya ben Mahalalel. We do hope that we'll never have to hear his teachings at any funeral, because we will, with the help of God, experience the great fulfillment of the prophetic words of Yeshayahu Hanavi. Never again will they recite the Mishnah of Akavya ben Mahalel at funerals, because with the help of God, there will be no funerals. As Isaiah said, in the words of Yeshayahu, chapter 25, verse 8, God will destroy death forever. That quotation is also quoted at the end of many funeral ceremonies. We hope that it'll come true this evening, and somehow we'll be able to understand the truth about Akavya ben Mahalalel's teachings. Due to a consideration of time, I think we will begin the Mishnah formally next week after these words of introduction. We're praying for the day of the Nevuah, of the Kiyum Divrei HaNevuah, of Yeshayahu, Pirkei, Pasuk Het, Bila Hamavet Lanetzach. God will swallow, God will remove, God will destroy death forever. Umaha Hashem Elokim Dim'ah Me'al Kol Panim. And God will wipe away all of the tears from all of the faces. V'herpat Amo Yasir Me'al Kol Haaretz. And the disgrace of the nation of Israel will be removed. Ki Hashem Diber. For such is the word of God. We hope to understand the words of Akavya ben Mahalalel. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom Uvracha.